All right, I have been informed by my players that if I do not share this story, I am simply wasting content. Far be it from me to waste content, so let me regale you with the story of Bob the Vengeance Paladin. His backstory is that he is a gravedigger who was sick of burying noble adventurers, so he is set off to rid the world of evil so that less adventurers have to die. Uh, Let me preface this story by explaining some of our homebrew rules that we play with. There is the optional rule in the DMG about lingering injuries. We use that rule, and I also allow a free intimidation check when a player deals massive damage on their swing. So at low levels, Bob was critical hit by a wolf. And he failed his saving throw against the lingering injuries, and he lost his hand at the wrist. The wolf bit off his hand. So he head to the blacksmith in town, and he ordered a prosthetic. He worked with them to figure out a way that he could get a prosthetic, basically just like a hook that he could attach to the end of his arm. And while he was there, he kind of did some good role play. And the blacksmith informed him that he may want to get his weapon silvered, as there were some creatures out there who couldn't be harmed otherwise. We then proceeded to roll a minor random encounter on the way to Kresk. It was appropriate due to the location that werewolves would show up. Unfortunately, no one in the party other than the paladin had a silvered weapon, so no one could hurt the werewolves. This was bad. One of the players got down to under 10 hit points. He'd been bitten, he failed his saving throw, and he ended up having to bleed himself to stop the disease spreading, causing even more damage. The barbarian was surrounded by 4 werewolves, bound to die, but refusing to retreat and leave the others alone. Our other rogue absolutely retreated. He fled immediately when he realized that his weapons were ineffective. Our paladin, our heroic Bob, charged in despite the danger and despite his friends being almost dead. He charged in with his silvered shovel, and he chopped off the head of the pack leader's son. This was a massive damage roll with smite using his last spell slots. He got his free intimidation roll. He caused the other werewolves to retreat. They retreated to inform the pack leader that his son had died. So they were shouting threats over their shoulders that this was definitely not over. We kind of forgot about the werewolves as we played through Kresk. But on the way back from Kresk towards Vallaki, the players wanted to go to the festival. We rolled up a deadly random encounter. I really didn't have much choice here. I had to have the werewolf pack leader come to avenge his son's death. The dice were just telling me to do it. So several werewolves came out of the forest to stop the players in their tracks, and they heard this crashing coming through the forest as this massive creature was approaching. One of the players took the initiative to lead 2 of the werewolves away into the forest as a distraction. And then coming bursting out of the forest was this enormous werewolf. I had actually substituted Kirill's stat block with a Lugaroo from the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. That is a CR 13 monstrosity, and these guys are currently level 7. So this is a very, very deadly encounter. This guy's got legendary actions, legendary resistances. He heals after every turn. He's no joke. The players were also grossly underprepared. They had low spell slots, barely any hit points left. So this was looking honestly like a TPK. But there has to be consequences to your actions, right? Like they killed his son. They rolled a deadly encounter. The paladin wasn't actually with the group at the time. He had headed off ahead of the group towards Vallaki. But he heard the fighting in the forest. So he turned back, mounted his summoned steed, and charged into the fray. The paladin managed to get up to the Lugaroo. He scored 2 hits and landed a critical hit on his second attack. He used all of his remaining spell slots to pump as many smites as he could into the Lugaroo, dishing out over 90 damage. The Lugaroo failed his saving throw for the lingering injuries and ended up losing a limb. The paladin chose to chop off his hand, like the wolf had done to him earlier in the campaign. He gets his free intimidation check and also rolls super, super high. I think it was like a 19. And so he leaned in and whispered into the Lugaroo's ear, "This is but a fraction of my power." This was enough for the werewolf. He'd been hit in one round for almost half his hit points. While he was furious about what had happened to his son, I couldn't refuse the dice rolls. A 19 intimidation check after taking almost half your hit points and damage in one round of attacks from one player. He had to flee. But it was one of those like kind of face palm DM moments where you're like, how did they avoid this? How did they get through this encounter? But somehow the dice gods were in their favor. And it's created one of the most epic stories for one of my D&D campaigns, and everyone at the table was cheering. It was a fantastic moment, and I'm so glad that it happened the way it did. He will be back though. I'm not going to share any spoilers here because my players may well watch this video, but I may need to update this story in the future with the saga of Bob the Paladin and Kirill Stormclaw. So stay tuned if you want to see what happens next. Thanks.